Hello, everyone, and welcome to Calasar. Today, we're going to be talking about something different. We're going to be talking about football, specifically Ohio State football. So, first, we want to say congratulations to Chase Young, Jeff Okuda, Damon Arnett for being selected in the first round. Yay! Not that they need it from me because they will all be making more money than I will ever see, but that's all right. So, I was listening to one of my favorite Ohio State podcasts called Buckeye Talk, and 9-3 Earl and his two henchmen were talking about players that represent certain coaches and eras, and maybe I'm just kind of misremembering, but that's how I remember it, so we're going to go with it. Well, I thought, what about that one player, if we could pick one offensive player, and maybe we'll go back and do defensive players too, that represents that era. Well, I thought, that's a great idea. So I thought we'll start with Woody Hayes, because I know a little bit of Woody Hayes. Anything before that I don't really know anything about. And we'll move on all the way to Ryan Day. So let's get started. So with Woody Hayes, I selected Archie Griffin. Now, there are lots of great people from the 60s, like Rex Kern and so forth, but I thought Archie Griffin represents what Woody Hayes stood for. He is the symbol of that Woody Hayes era. So he played from 1972 to 1975. He had 5,589 yards, 6-yard average, 26 TDs. His best season was 1974, where he rushed for 1,695 yards for a 6.6-yard average in 12 TDs. Great player, fantastic seasons at Ohio State, went on, played for the Bengals and so forth for a few years. Great player, represents Woody Hayes perfectly. The next coach is Earl Bruce. And I chose Keith Byers. Now, you could have selected, say, Chris Carter or Arch Leister, and they would have both been great. Okay, Chris Carter would have been a great choice. Arch Leister? Yeah. I chose Keith Byers because he had a record-setting season, 1984. He rushed for 1,764 yards, a 5.3-yard average, 22 touchdowns. His career at Ohio State was 3,200 yards, 5.2-yard average, and 46 TDs. Great player. It's just, when you think of Earl Bruce, you think run. And I think Keith Byers perfectly represents that for that time period. Well, how about the more modern era, say, John Cooper? He also was run too at times. But he also pass. Think about Joe Germain in that wonderful season in the late 90s. So this was a little bit harder because John Cooper had a plethora of wide receivers. And so I could have easily selected, say, Galloway or Glenn or Boston. But I selected Eddie George, record-setting Eddie George. I think you think about that mid-90s, Eddie George represents that John Cooper era. He ran for a magical 1995 season of 1,927 yards, 5.9-yard average, 24 TDs. It was a great year. You hand him the ball, he's going to score a touchdown. Remember that Illinois game where he ran for 300 and some odd yards? It just seemed like Illinois could not stop him. Great player. The only thing that kind of tarnishes, and this does not tarnish Eddie George, it doesn't really tarnish John Cooper either, because he did have a great career at Ohio State. But 2-10-1 against Michigan, I think was the record. 2-10-1. Yeah, makes me sad. Now, I could have easily selected Joe Germain for this, and I think if Joe Germain had started for more than one season, he would be a closer competitor to Eddie George, but he only really started for one season, so he's number 2, maybe even number 3. Speaking of which, how about moving on to Jim Tressel, the guy who changed everything. So, I selected Troy Smith because you got to choose the Michigan Slayer. The dude could always just beat Michigan, just the way he was. Now, I thought about a what if. So what if Maurice Clarett could have kept his nose clean? Maybe Maurice Clarett would be in this spot and not Troy Smith. Because remember, Maurice Claret was the reason we won that national title game. No Maurice Claret, no national title. Maybe we would have won another one. Who knows? But that did not happen. So we got Troy Smith. And 2006 was a magical season. I loved that season. I still watch some of the games from that season, and that was forever ago. That year, he completed 65% of his passes for 2,542 yards, 30 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions. It was a great year. His total at Ohio State was a 62.7% completion percentage, 5,720 yards, 54 TDs, and 13 interceptions. 54 touchdowns was really good for his career. Dwayne Haskins looks at that and goes, yeah, I got that. Got that in one season. But for the time period, that was fantastic. And 2006 was a magical season all the way up until the disaster in the desert. And we're not going to rehash that. It was just a horrid game that we do not want to relive. But just like Darth Vader turned from the dark side and became Anakin Skywalker again, we have Urban Meyer. Yay! Now, his teams also ooze with talent. And so you have J.T. Barrett and Michael Thomas. You just got tons and tons and tons of offensive talent. But I chose Ezekiel Elliott because just like Maurice Claret in terms of winning, without Ezekiel Elliott, I don't think we beat Alabama. Remember that game? I still watch that game every now and then. That last 3-game stretch with Elliott was magical. He just ran all over everybody. And he did that for the year after that too. So I chose his best season as being that national championship year. He ran for 1,878 yards, a 6.9 yard average, and 18 touchdowns. He also did equally as good the next year, but we didn't make it to the national title. We lost the game, and that's the way it was. His career stats are 3,961 yards and a 6.7 yard average with 43 TDs. And that was from 2013 to 2015. Great. Now he passed the baton on to a new dynasty, the Ryan Day dynasty, which has just started. And so I selected Justin Fields with Ryan Day. I could have selected J.K. Dobbins, but I see him as more of an Urban Meyer Ryan Day guy. So I wanted to pick somebody who's just Ryan Day. And I would say for now it's Justin Fields. That could change 10 years down the road. But for now, this is what it is. His best season was, of course, his past season, where he completed 67% of his passes for 3,273 yards, 41 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 2 of which I think came in the same game. I don't know. I think I've kind of blocked it out. But I see another great season from Justin Fields. Maybe in 10 years from now, we're talking about another great quarterback for Ohio State. Who knows? But his career stats at the moment are 3,601 yards for 67% of his passes, 45 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, 2 of which came in one game, I do believe. But like I said, this is just the start of the Ryan Day dynasty. And yes, it will be a dynasty. It will be a Patriots-like dynasty, one that goes for 20 years, unless he leaves. And then we will all cry. All right, well, I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, please subscribe, and you guys have a wonderful day.